Good afternoon, everybody. In this video, we are going to be doing a collective deep dive into this solar eclipse new moon taking place on April 8th, 2024, conjunct Chiron in Aries, and what that spells for everybody as we go through the rest of April from the 8th on and even on into early July. And that is because solar eclipses have intensely long window periods of influence. It's like you take a new moon, which is all about fresh starts and new beginnings, new roads, new life chapters and transitions, but also, instead of having it kind of just show up once and get to work, it begins a very long story arc. And a lot of the times with the solar eclipse, a lot of other heightened forces start to get kicked up around us as well to really get that story on a roll. Now, this is going to be a collective deep dive, which means I'm not going to be talking in the video about what's going on with each and every single sign and where it's happening for every sign. I did cover a bit of that in the monthlies for April, which are already up, of course, and I will leave a pinned comment in the down bar below, so you can always just check your pinned comment in the down bar below, and that way you can see the sun, the moon, the rising, or whatever sign you want to look at and be like, okay, this is primarily going to be happening in these places. Of course, depending on what is going on in your personal chart and what, planets rule what house, that is going to change things for you. But this is, of course, a general collective deep dive anyway, so we are going to all be feeling this in some way, shape, or form. And if you would ever like to get a personal reading with me, you can always go on ahead to my website, integrativemysticism.com. So, solar eclipses, like I said, they're about new beginnings. They're about fresh starts, things that become new commitments in our lives for at least the rest of not only the window period of that solar eclipse, but likely things that change our courses from a lot of plans that we may be set for even the next 6 months to even longer, regarding whatever is going on with the rest of your world, right? This is a brand new commitment that is getting initiated during the beginnings of this eclipse, right around the 8th, and kind of the strong super epicenter of those energies being from the 8th through about the 16th, and then of course carrying itself, running its course all the way up through early July. Because we have a solar eclipse in Aries of all things that focus on new beginnings, new fresh starts, a new life, is actually very, very strong because, well, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So the first sign of the zodiac is all about the pioneer, braving into new territory, turning a brand new page, cracking open a brand new book. Things that are completely fresh, out of the ordinary, and not at all syncing up 100% with the life experience that we know or the personal history that we have, right? That is how this kind of energy is going to flow. This is not going to necessarily sync up with a lot of plans or ideas or things that we've rattled around in recent history. This is certainly going to be taking us all into a place where we have to be ready to adapt. We need to be ready to think on our feet, and we can't maybe bring a lot of the familiar with us. Now, depending on where this falls in your chart, this could be a situation where you kind of feel like you're just dropped into a whole new game, or you might find that this is a new direction that you might be taking in your career, or a new living arrangement, or a new relationship, or maybe a new destination with a plan, or some kind of new course getting charted with a joint pursuit. Whatever is going on here, and those are just a few examples, it's going to command and demand a lot of changes elsewhere in our worlds in order for it to come in. And that is basically a solar eclipse new moon in a nutshell whenever it occurs. Now, what happens with this solar eclipse is a bit different. It has all of that and more. This eclipse is also going to be conjunct Chiron, the ruler of our wounds, our pains, the hurts, the things that we have maybe left unhealed, things in our life that are maybe in existence because of things that are not healed, or things in our life that are ruled by things that are not healed within ourselves. And so this solar eclipse I look at as a very strong new once upon a time story, a very strong graduation, a very important new beginning and commitment. But there's also the sense of a deeply personal challenge, or a deeply emotionally challenging, or maybe even heartbreaking graduation going on at the same time. And as I was getting ready to make this video, that was kind of the image that was running through my mind as I was, kind of, all right, well, this is what we're going to talk about. And there is the sense of completion, and there is the moving on to bigger and better things. There is also the heartache that can come from a graduation, right? You're going out into life now. You're going to be parting from things that you've become accustomed to. If it was a school, it might be the grounds, it might be the environment. Your friends are all going into different places. And so this area of your life, wherever this is falling for your sun, moon, and rising and all of that, that's really going to be getting the shake-up here. This is really going to be, pulling some things much closer into your world, but there's that sense of a graduation and heartache all at the same time nonetheless. And what this can also do is, as we go through this next few months, put us on a bit of a course in some very deep healing work, some very deep remediation work, which is not something I often talk about on this channel. But for this, it's actually quite significant, because the solar eclipse is also affording the opportunity to do not only a lot of work cracking open our hearts, cracking open a lot of parts of our lives that have been shut down, a lot of our lives that have been maybe going through the motions, a lot of things in our lives that have maybe been kind of stuck on a loop of just, maintenance and staying afloat for its own sake, and maybe even holding on to things that are familiar and secure that won't necessarily rise beyond that. And those can all be painful things to acknowledge. It's kind of like, all right, I'm going to always be dreaming of my perfect, whatever, while I also sink all of my time, energy, and effort into maintaining my thing that basically is kind of iffy most of the time, or requires a lot of overcompensation in order to continue. But it's familiar, so I'll keep it. We're graduating from a lot of those kinds of experiences and a lot of those ways of carrying on. Now, a solar eclipse conjunct Chiron can initiate something that can be very, very good, but on the surface, because of those challenges that go way, way deep, right to the core of our being, we might look at a new beginning as an apocalypse. And to a certain degree, it could be a certain measure of both happening at the same time. But there is support here to make this as comfortable and as stable and safe as possible, keeping all of the really difficult stuff on the non-physical, on the internal, on the emotional, on the psychological, and on the spiritual. And that is because this eclipse is actually being braced in a very nice way. Aries is currently flanked by two very powerful conjunctions that will not be exact, but will be forming just as we go into the week of the eclipse. And then later on, as we go into the week and a half following the eclipse, they will become each exact in their own time. And so there is going to be some stability to this transition, some security to this new beginning getting formed. But it can, of course, push us into spaces or onto roads, or maybe even towards things that we would like to be closer to, or that we know would serve us well, that unfortunately we would need to be able to also reconcile the differences of the life we are, currently giving our all to maintain versus this new beginning. Because it may actually be something, it's like a good thing happens at the same time as this full stop happens at the same time. So it's like, okay, both of these things are going on at once. And it's just very, very clear as we go through this eclipse first 2 weeks, right? The eclipse window goes all the way up till July, but this first 2 weeks, all right, something is coming to a full stop, full shutdown, full end. We can't revive it. We can't get it to work anymore. We can't seem to be, getting it to take another step. And yet at the same time, we're getting put in a brighter world. We are getting pushed away from it anyhow. And that can be, again, on the physical, on the material, when it comes to just all matters of our personal care, we're going to be okay. This is all an emotional internal process that we are going through here, and sometimes it can be hard to go through a challenging graduation like that. By the time we get to July, a lot of this will have run the majority of its course. The vast majority of solar eclipse influences, kind of come on the strongest in the first 3 months, and then for the second 3 months of that half year, it's really more about integration. It's really more about, okay, we've done it. Now it's time to break in the new situation. When we find ourselves in July of this year, we're also going to be able to look back and see where we are gaining from all of this discomfort, where we are gaining from all of this difficulty, where we are gaining from maybe even having our hearts cracked open a little bit and our inner processes completely scrutinized and overhauled by these energies. But it might be a very difficult process to go through. In fact, I will say to a certain degree, we're all going to be going through our challenging graduations, each and all, throughout the course of this next 2-3 months. But this is not something that I would recommend trying to hunker down and just sort of wait out, because likely that's not going to work. This is one of those transits, and that tends to have its way with everybody somewhere. And I think that in order to gain more from this, it would be better to understand that whatever comes up during this 3-month period, especially between the 8th and the 30th of April, is surely for our good. So that is what I've got for you all. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. And of course, if you ever want to get a personal session with me, you can go on ahead to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com.